You're playing all the right notes. You practice the scales, the licks, the solos, but still, something feels off. Your playing sounds stiff, like you're just going through the motions instead of actually making music. And it's frustrating, isn't it? Because you don't quite know yet what's missing. You're hitting the right notes, but it just doesn't have that sound. You know, that sound that makes people stop and just feel what it is you're playing. And here's the truth. This has nothing to do with how many scales you know or how fast you can play. The problem is that you're missing this one crucial thing that every great guitarist uses instinctively. And once you fix this problem, your playing will finally have that magic feeling that you've been chasing. And you'll be making all of the guitar staying faces. You know what I'm talking about. In this lesson, I'm going to show you why exactly your playing sounds stiff and the one simple change that's going to finally make your notes sound expressive and alive. Oh, and I've got something for you that's going to help you take things even further, and I'll show you how to get it at the end of the video. But for now, let's breathe some life into your playing and get you making all those guitar faces. Deal? All right, now let's get into step one on how to find out if your playing has feeling. We're going to give it what we like to call the vocal test. If you want your guitar playing to have emotion, it has to sound as close to a human voice as you can make it. The more it sounds like a human voice, the less it sounds like a robot. So we're going to learn how to sing a phrase and then play it on guitar. And to really help narrow things down and make it easy, we're just going to use this 4-note pentatonic hotbox in the A minor pentatonic. It's going to be 8th fret, 10th fret on the B string, then 8th fret, 10th fret on high E. Just those 4 notes. So when you learn those and play them, sing them out loud so you can match, the actual notes. And let's think about singing a simple phrase within those 4 notes. And the phrase doesn't have to use all 4 notes. We can use any number of notes we want. Let's do like a 3-note phrase like ba ba da. The simpler the better. Ba, ba, da. That already has more of a vocal quality. I'm not really doing a whole lot to zhuzh it up. I'm just kind of playing the notes. Ba, ba, ba. Cool. Already it sounds more on purpose than if I were to just go, right? Just get into this infinite loop of just like noodling, right? We want to come up with phrases, just like with communicating, like, we're trying to do a human voice. So let's do another one. Let me refresh on the notes. It's okay, because I'm not a great singer. You don't have to be pitch perfect with these notes. The point is you want them to inspire a phrase that you come up with and that you bring out on the guitar, even if it's not perfectly in pitch in your head. Really where it counts is how it comes out on the guitar. So if I were to do like, da, 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 da. That's a nice phrase right there. Da, 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 da. Okay, like right there, I got 2 solid phrases that if I wanted to throw that over a backing track, playing an A minor pentatonic, could totally use those. Now, of course, you want to inject a little more flavor in the notes, so you can do things like vibrato. You could do bends. You can do slides. All these little guitar linguistics, they just really spice things up, but also they really help make your phrasing sound more vocal. So with that 4-note hotbox, just come up with a few of your own phrases right now. Just sit there, think of something, and then try to play it. Again, don't put so much pressure on yourself where it has to use all 4 notes. Just do 2 notes, if you want to in the beginning. Or even 1. Just start with like, all right, like you're just like hitting the root note. And then sliding out. Something like that, right? Just to give it a little bit of flavor, a little bit of personality. I'm telling you, this is really, really fun as an exercise. You'll come up with 3 phrases, 4, 5, 6. Next thing you know, you're just pumping out phrases infinitely, even though you're just using a small portion of your fretboard. The next thing we're going to do is talk about the breath trick and how that can help you speak more in phrases on your guitar, as opposed to just kind of Energizer Bunny, just nonstop playing like you do in this run-on sentence, right? Sometimes when we do that, that's a surefire sign that we're just on this autopilot that's not really taking us to anywhere musical. We're just going through the motions, right? So the breath trick is going to really help us leave space in between our phrases. It's also going to really help prevent us from rushing when we play. So going back to that same 4-note hotbox, right? Even with just those 4 notes, that temptation to noodle can really come in where you're just going like I did earlier. Even if you're going fast, it may be fun for a second, but it's come on, if that's all you're going to do with those 4 notes, I mean, you're really limiting yourself, right? There's a whole world of phrasing we can explore just with those 4 notes. So what we're going to do is something called the breath trick. So think about it this way. Real music should breathe. So if you're just kind of evenly playing through the notes without stopping, you're not stopping to take a breath, and you need to. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a deep breath, and then we're going to play as we exhale, okay? And then as soon as we're done, as soon as we're out of breath, we're going to stop playing. So here we go. All right, out of breath. So nice phrase right there. It lasted plenty, as far as time. And then if I kept going, it just would have gotten a little too redundant. So now that I'm out of breath, I'm going to actually take another breath, and that's our pause. And then we're going to do it again. And if you want, you can even take shorter breaths if you want the phrases to be shorter. And then it's eventually this becomes a great Wim Hof style breathing exercise, but you're also playing music while you're at it. You can also think about this. Imagine an instrument that's powered by breathing, right? Like saxophone, trumpet, any brass instrument, any woodwind instrument, there has to be some breathing room because physically we need to breathe. So most, instrumentalists that play all those other instruments, they tend to have already pretty solid phrasing, even if they're not particularly, a virtuoso or anything. They don't have to be. They naturally can play great phrases, and they don't get caught in the same traps that us guitar players do, especially when it comes to noodling and then just evenly nonstop playing notes, because obviously we can do this without the luxury of needing to breathe, but we can definitely learn a thing or two by actually employing our breathing, which we do even as guitar players, right? And letting that force us into actually evening out our phrasing in the same way that we do between breaths. Moving on to step 3. This is a rule that I think will make perfect sense, but if you really want to talk about injecting feel into your playing, what that's going to take is touch. Feeling and touch go together, you know what I mean? In fact, you can take 2 guitarists and have them play the same note. One could sound boring, and the other could sound incredible. You know what the difference is? It would be in their touch. So, of course, touch can involve the guitar linguistics like we were talking about earlier, right? Slides, bends, vibratos, that kind of thing, right? But the other thing, too, is in our picking hand, we actually have another factor when it comes to touch, and that comes in the form of attack. Because there's a ton of different sounds you can get just based on how you attack the string, how hard you pick it, how soft you pick it. Basically, what that does is give way to dynamics. So if we were to go back into step 1, come up with a phrase that we'd sing either in our head or out loud, play it out, and then, stop it when we run out of breath. During that time, we can really focus on vibratos. We can focus on pick attack, all the little, subtle things that are going to really breathe this feeling, this liveliness into our playing. So let's go for it. We're going to stick with these same 4 notes, right? Can't get much simpler than that. Here we go. Just kind of went a little softer towards the end there. So with those 2 phrases that I just came up with, okay, hopefully you were paying attention in what was happening there, right? I wasn't singing the phrase out loud because I had to focus on breathing, but I, came up with it in my head based on, knowing how the notes sound in my head, came up with the phrase, took a deep breath, and then slowly exhaled. And as I did it, and as I was playing through the notes, especially on notes where I was pausing, I was doing some vibrato, I was focusing on attack. Sometimes I would pick hard and then slow down, soften up, do some slides. Just that right there. When you play real soft, man, that has an impact compared to which is nice too. It kind of slices, but something about that, oof, it just kind of gives you goosebumps, right? When you're focusing on, I did the same linguistic, right? The same thing I did slides, right? All I changed was my attack, the dynamics of my attack. So not only was it a difference in volume, it was a difference in tone, right? When I pick soft, it's clean, smooth. When I attack, it cuts more, it breaks up more, it's a little more distorted. You could say it's a little angrier. It's a little aggressive and then calms down, right? You can think of your picking dynamics like water. One moment it's calm and soothing, and then the next moment it's just like wallops you in the face with a tidal wave, right? So it's the same kind of deal, right? The water itself doesn't change, it's just the state of it. So that's kind of how the dynamics are. You could be, calm and soothing at first, or then you can just really just hit them with it. There's all kinds of ways that you can approach, your phrasing just based on your pick attack. So think of the touch from your fretting hand as the guitar linguistics, the vibrato, the slides, the bends, all that. And then from your picking hand, the touch comes from your attack, your dynamics. Oh, and by the way, if you're getting value out of this lesson, do me a favor, hit that like button and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. We got a whole bunch more lessons coming your way, and I'd love for you to be at the front of the line to get them when they come out. So I thank you in advance, and let's get back to business. Moving on to step 4, I like to call this the question and answer trick, also known as the call and response. If you feel like your playing sounds flat and uninspired, it could be because you're just kind of playing notes without actually having a conversation. So similar to the breath trick, where this is about creating space between phrases, it can actually help inspire your next phrase by starting your initial phrase with like your question, right? So for example, staying on the same 4 notes. If I were to do my question, it could be something like this. Kind of hangs a little bit on a cliffhanger note, right? Because it doesn't resolve. So I have my question, and knowing that I just played a question phrase, right, or a call phrase, I have a response or an answer I got to make, right? And that helps inspire what my next phrase is. So it's almost like it gives you everything that you need to think ahead on what you're going to play next. So, that's my question. Here's my response. I'd say that's pretty solid. They sounded like, they were having a little conversation. And, you don't have to play them exactly the same every time. I know I don't. I just, as long as the spirit of them is there. The point is, now the idea has been created. You have created something out of nothing by using this trick, right? So by doing this, it's actually going to help inspire ideas, and they don't have to be perfect. They're going to, some will feel a little clunky at times, but as you build this habit, you're just going to be like, you're never going to stop coming up with phrases. It's going to be something that you just do. And on top of that, all of your phrases are going to feel good because they have your fretting hand dynamics and your picking hand dynamics to boot. So for good measure, let's do one more question and answer. Here we go. Here's my question. There's my answer. I'm moving on to step 5. This is going to be a little bit of a bonus, and this is going to be something that's going to really help you get the most out of playing notes in a scale. It's a bit of a challenge, but it's really going to help you unlock expressiveness in whatever scale you play in a few minutes, I promise. And it's called the one string challenge. So since we've been playing an A minor pentatonic, we're going to find the A minor pentatonic scale across one string and how we can actually use that to get much more juice out of the notes. So here's the scale. We're going to do it on the B string because the B string is always great for soloing, right? So it starts on the 1st fret of the B string, then the 3rd fret, then 5th fret, then 8th fret, then 10th fret. And we can keep it going a little further. We can go up an octave up, so to the 13th fret, 15th fret, and 17th fret. And then that's more than enough for now, but obviously you can keep going through that entire scale an octave up if you want to. So to prove that you don't need this insane mental library of scales in order to make music, you can totally make music with just one scale on one string. Let's check it out. I want you to visualize yourself playing the minor pentatonic scale just like that on one string. Would you say that's more expressive than... I mean, I'd say so. And now that you've learned this stuff, it's just a matter of time before you're playing the scale in the soulful way, just like I did. Oh, and here's a quick pro tip. You can also ditch the pick and then just pick with your fingers if you want, so you can just really get the feel down. I got a message from one of our VIP club members who said that he feels like his playing was lifeless. Now, mind you, he was a good player. He could actually play pretty fast, but he said that he just hated how he sounded. So I showed him all the same stuff that I just showed you. I told him that it all comes down to one thing: touch, right? When you fix that, everything just kind of falls into place. Literally the next week, he emails me a video of himself playing saying, "I cannot believe I missed this. Thanks for telling me. I wish I'd known this sooner." This is why I know that this stuff will work for you too. Now imagine what happens when you take this even further, when every note you play has weight, feeling, emotion, and also just sounds awesome and gets you excited. That's exactly why we put together this free guide on how to instantly solo in any key. This is going to take what you learned today and take it even further. So much further that it's going to cover all the keys. Just be sure to click right here to claim your free copy, or if you're watching this on TV, scan that QR code or check the link that I left for you in the description box. I recommend you check out this free lesson today, right now, because the sooner that you stop sounding stiff, the sooner that you're going to sound like the guitarist you've always wanted to be.